My return wasn't scheduled. I got home in the dead of night, 3 days before anyone expected me, and my world ended. My name is Leo. For 12 years, I was an Army Ranger. I've seen things in deserts and mountains overseas that I'll never unsee. But nothing, not a single firefight or ambush, prepared me for the war I walked into in my own home, in my own family. You ever get that feeling? That icy prickle at the base of your spine that screams something is fundamentally catastrophically wrong? It's not panic. It's colder than that. It's your instincts, honed by survival, shutting down everything else and whispering one word: danger. I felt it the moment I killed the engine in my driveway at 3 a.m. The house was a dark silhouette against the Virginia mountain sky. No porch light left on. No soft glow from our bedroom window. Just blackness. I was beyond exhausted. A last-minute diplomatic twist had cut my deployment short by 72 hours. I'd spent the last day and a half in a blur of military transport, bureaucracy, and a long, solitary drive from the base. All that kept me going was the thought of my daughter's face, Chloe. She'd just turned 7. I'd missed her birthday. That guilt was a physical ache, a stone in my gut. But this was it. My papers were filed. After over a decade of service, I was home for good. No more goodbyes. The silence should have been peaceful. No distant mortar fire, just the chirp of late autumn crickets and wind through the tall pines that lined our property. But it wasn't peaceful. It was hollow, absent. I grabbed my duffel and walked to the front door, unlocked. My stomach tightened. My wife Anna knew the rule: always lock it, especially when I was gone. I drilled it into her 100 times. The unlocked door was the first crack in the normalcy I was desperately clinging to. I pushed it open, my body shifting automatically into a clearing pattern, low, quiet senses dialed to 11. The living room was a mess. Not a lived-in mess, but a neglected one. Dishes piled in the sink. Mail scattered across the counter like leaves. Anna's purse dumped on the kitchen table as if she'd thrown it in frustration. The house didn't smell like home. It smelled stale, like takeout and regret. "Anna?" My voice was low, just above a whisper. No answer. I took the stairs one at a time, avoiding the creaky third step from the top. Our bedroom door was wide open. Anna was on the bed, still in her jeans and sweater from the day, sprawled on top of the covers. One arm hung off the side. On the nightstand, an empty wine bottle stood sentinel. My jaw clenched. I moved to Chloe's room. Her door, decorated with a peeling unicorn decal she'd picked out herself, was closed. I pushed it open. Empty. The bed was neatly made. Too neat. Her favorite stuffed elephant, Mr. Trunks, who had been her constant companion since she was 2, was gone from his pillow. Her little sneakers weren't by the door. The room felt like a museum exhibit. A child's room, not Chloe's room. The cold stone in my gut turned to lead. I was back in our bedroom in 3 strides, shaking Anna's shoulder. Hard. She jolted awake, eyes bleary and unfocused. "Leo? What, you're not supposed to? Where is Chloe?" My voice was flat. Calm. It was the voice I used when a mission was falling apart and showing fear would get you killed. Anna blinked, trying to place me in time and space. "What time is it?" "Where is our daughter?" I repeated, each word precise and hard. She's at my mom's. "I told you in the email." I hadn't gotten any email. Communications from forward bases were spotty at best. "What email? Why is she at your mother's at 3 a.m? "It's 3? She sat up, rubbing her face. "She's been there since Tuesday. Mom's been watching her. I had things to handle. Work stuff." I stared at her. 12 years of marriage. 12 years of learning to read micro-expressions, the tension in a jaw, the flicker of a gaze. It was a skill as vital as any weapon, and every nerve in my body was shrieking. Her eyes wouldn't meet mine. Her hands, smoothing her hair, had a fine tremor, not from sleep, from fear. Have you ever looked at someone you love and seen a stranger staring back? In that moment, in the dim light of our bedroom, I didn't know the woman in front of me. "I'm going to get her," I said, already turning. "Leo, it's the middle of the night. She's asleep." I was already down the stairs. I didn't stop to argue. My truck keys were still in my hand. Anna's mother, Beatrice Grayson, lived 40 minutes deeper into the mountains, down winding roads that clung to the cliffsides. I'd never liked her. The feeling was intensely mutual. She was a woman carved from the same cold stone as the hills, running something she called the Grayson Center for Renewal on her sprawling, isolated property. Spiritual counseling, life coaching for troubled youth. I called it a cultish money pit. Anna always said I was being judgmental. Tonight, judgment was the least of my concerns. I pushed the truck hard, tires squealing on the mountain curves. My hands were steady on the wheel, but my mind was a hurricane. Tuesday. Chloe had been there for 4 days. Why hadn't Anna mentioned it in our last strained video call? Why send her to Beatrice at all? Chloe wasn't troubled. She was a bright, sometimes willful, perfectly normal 7-year-old. The Grayson property was a pool of darkness at the end of a long gravel drive. As I rounded the final bend, I saw lights on in the main farmhouse. Every window blazed. That was the second wrong thing. No one in these mountains burned that much electricity at this hour. No one. I parked sideways, not caring, and was out of the truck before the dust settled. The front door swung open before I reached the porch. Beatrice stood in the doorway, backlit by the harsh indoor light. Tall, thin as a rake, her gray hair pulled into a severe knot. She wore a long, quilted robe, and an expression that might have been concern on a normal person. On her, it looked like she was calculating a sum. "Leo," Anna called. "She said you were coming." Her voice was dry, like pages turning. "Where is my daughter?" "She's sleeping. This is highly disruptive." I brushed past her into the house. The smell hit me first, industrial cleaner, the sharp tang of bleach, but underneath it, something organic and sickly sweet, like damp earth and spoiled fruit. "Chloe," I called, moving through a cluttered living room toward the back of the house. "You'll wake the other residents," Beatrice snapped, following me. I stopped. "What other residents?" "I run a residential program here. Young people who need structure. Their families entrust them to my care for discipline and spiritual realignment. I knew about the program in the vague, dismissive way you know about a relative's annoying hobby. Now, looking at her placid, calculating face, a chill seeped into my bones. Where is Chloe? She is in the backyard. Taking reflection time. It's part of her corrective process. I was moving before she finished the sentence, shoving through a heavy door into the kitchen and out the back. The yard was a vast, dark plain bordered by the black wall of the forest. In the weak moonlight, I could see shapes, small, shed-like structures, a rusted swing set. The air was bitingly cold. Chloe, a whimper, faint, almost swallowed by the wind. It came from my left. I fumbled for my phone, thumbed on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, bouncing over frozen grass and mud. I saw the hole. It was a raw gash in the earth, maybe 4 feet deep, 3 feet wide. And inside it, standing in mud and icy water up to her calves, shivering violently in thin pajamas, was my little girl. D-Daddy? Her voice was a tiny, broken thing. I was in the pit a second later, the frozen muck sucking at my boots. I lifted her out, her small body shuddering against mine. She was soaked through, her skin like ice. She wrapped her arms around my neck and buried her face, her whole frame racked with sobs. "I've got you, baby. I've got you," I murmured, stripping off my jacket and wrapping it around her. "How long have you been out here?" "I don't know," she chattered. Grandma said, she said bad girls have to learn. She said I needed to learn to be good. Her words dissolved into incoherent weeping. A fury, white hot and pure, ignited in my chest. I forced it down. Chloe needed calm. She needed safety. I would deal with Beatrice later. Then, my little girl lifted her head. Her tears streaked face pale in the phone's light. She put her lips right next to my ear, her whisper a ghost of sound. "Daddy, please, don't look in the other hole. What would you do?" Your child, freezing and terrified, begs you not to look. But you're a soldier. You know that ignoring intelligence gets people killed. You know that to protect her, you have to know what you're up against, even if it destroys you. I held her tight. "Close your eyes, sweetheart. Close them tight and don't open them. Can you do that for me?" She nodded against my chest, squeezing her eyes shut. Holding her with one arm, I turned. My flashlight beam swept across the yard. 20 feet away, another patch of disturbed earth. This one was covered with old, warped wooden planks. I walked toward it, every step feeling like a betrayal of her whispered plea. But I had to know. I had to see. I set Chloe down gently on dry ground a few feet away, her back to the pit. "Keep your eyes closed, baby. I'm right here." With my boot, I kicked one of the planks aside, then another. The smell billowed out. Not just earth, the cloying, rotten, sweet stench of decay mixed with something chemical, like lye. My stomach heaved. I pointed the light down into the hole. Bones. Small, delicate bones. A skull, staring up with empty sockets. Undeniably human. Undeniably a child. Tattered scraps of colored fabric, a piece of a floral dress, were tangled in the remains. And beside the skull, something glinted. Metal. I leaned closer, fighting the urge to vomit. A tag. Like a military dog tag. I could just make out a name etched into the metal. Lily Forbes. My training slammed into place, overriding the horror. This was a crime scene. A gravesite. Evidence. With a trembling hand, I took my phone and snapped 3 pictures, making sure the tag was clear. Evidence. For whatever came next. I replaced the planks, a meaningless gesture of respect for the dead. Then I scooped Chloe back into my arms and turned toward the house. Beatrice was waiting in the kitchen, holding a steaming mug of tea, as if we were having a pleasant evening visit. "She's being dramatic," she said, her voice dismissive. "It builds character. The cold teaches humility." I looked at her. The fury was back, but it was cold now, sharp as a blade. "Sit down," I said, my voice low and utterly devoid of emotion. "Do not move. Do not speak. Do not even think about running, because I will find you." I carried Chloe to my truck, started it, and cranked the heater to full blast. She was still shivering, her teeth chattering. "Listen to me, baby. You're safe now. I'm taking you somewhere warm. But I need you to be brave for a little longer. Can you tell me who Lily Forbes is?" Chloe's eyes, wide with a fear no child should ever know, filled with fresh tears. "You looked. I told you not to look." "I know, honey. I'm sorry. But I need to know. She She was here last year, Chloe whispered. She was bad too. Grandma said she ran away. But she started crying again, hard. I heard her screaming one night, and then she was gone. Grandma said if I was bad, I'd end up like the girls who run away. I pulled out my phone. There was only one person I trusted here. My old friend, Ben Carter, now a sheriff's detective in the county over. He answered on the fourth ring. Ben, it's Leo. I need you at 188 Ridgecrest Road, now. Bring everyone you can, and call the state police. Leo? I thought you were overseas. What's going on? I just found a child's remains in a hole on my mother-in-law's property. There may be more. And there are other kids here. A beat of stunned silence. Then, 10 minutes out. Don't hang up. I looked back at the farmhouse. Beatrice was standing at the kitchen window, watching. She didn't look worried. She looked angry, annoyed, as if I'd interrupted something important. That told me everything. She'd done this before. She thought she was untouchable. Ben, listen. The property owner is Beatrice Grayson. She runs a disciplinary program for kids. My daughter was in a hole in the backyard. Hypothermic. There's at least one grave. The name on the tag is Lily Forbes. We need to get every child off this property. Now. Leo, get your daughter out of there, now. I'm in the truck with her. But Ben, I'm not leaving until I know every kid here is safe. Do not go back in that house. That's an order, soldier. But I was already moving. I turned to Chloe. Her eyes, huge in her pale face, locked onto mine. Baby, I need you to lock the doors. Stay right here. Keep the heat on. I'm going to get the other kids. Okay? Daddy, don't go. Her voice was a thin thread of panic. I promise I'll be careful. But those kids need help. Just like you did. I kissed her forehead. Lock the doors. If anyone but me or a police officer comes near this truck, you lay on the horn. Understand? She nodded, terrified but trusting. I got out, heard the locks click behind me, and walked back toward the brightly lit house. The father in me was receding. The soldier was taking over. This was no longer a home. It was a hostile compound, and I was going to clear it. Beatrice was still in the kitchen. She stood as I entered. You have no right. Where are they? I cut her off. The residents are sleeping. You're overreacting. That pit is a therapeutic tool. It teaches. I crossed the room in 2 strides. I didn't touch her, but she stumbled back against the counter, her teacup clattering into the sink. Where are the kids? Her eyes flashed with defiance, then something else, fear of me, not of the law, upstairs. But they're fine. They're here because their parents can't control them. I'm helping them. I took the stairs 2 at a time. The hallway was dark, lined with doors. The first one was locked, from the outside, a simple slide bolt. I kicked it, just below the handle. The wood around the latch splintered, and the door flew open. The smell of unwashed bodies and fear hit me. 3 small shapes huddled on thin sleeping mats on the bare floor. No pillows, no blankets. The window was barred with a homemade wooden grate. They stared at me, their eyes hollow, sunken. I'd seen that look before. In refugee camps. In war zones. Wake up, I said, my voice gentler now. My name is Leo. I'm here to help you. The police are coming. You're going to be okay. A boy, maybe 8, with matted hair, spoke in a whisper. Are you taking us home? Yes. Right now. Let's go. I led them downstairs. Beatrice tried to block the front door. Her arms spread. You can't do this. Their parents signed contracts. You have no authority. Their parents signed their kids over to a woman who buries children in her garden, I said, my voice low and dangerous. Get out of my way. She didn't move. I simply put a hand on her shoulder, moved her aside like a piece of furniture. She was shockingly light. I ushered the 3 silent, wide-eyed children out onto the porch just as the first flashing blue and red lights pierced the darkness, painting the trees in strobes of emergency. 2 county cruisers, then a state police SUV, skidded to a halt in the gravel. Ben Carter, a burly man with a kind, weathered face, jumped out of the lead car. He took one look at the shivering children in their pajamas, then at my face, and grabbed his radio. "We need ambulances. Multiple minors. Possible extreme neglect and abuse. Secure the perimeter." The next minutes were a blur of controlled chaos. More cars arrived. Paramedics. I pointed them to my truck, where Chloe was. I gave Ben the quick version. The hole, the grave, the name Lily Forbes. They found 6 more children locked in a basement room, all malnourished, all bearing bruises, old and new, all with the same dead-eyed stare. As dawn began to bleed gray light into the eastern sky, I sat in the passenger seat of my truck, a blanket wrapped around Chloe as she finally slept against my chest. The property swarmed with investigators. Evidence tents were going up over the pits. Beatrice had been read her rights and sat stoically in the back of a patrol car, her lips moving silently, praying or planning, I couldn't tell. Ben walked over, his face grim in the morning light. "They're going to need statements from you." "From Chloe. Not today, but soon." "She sees a doctor first," I said, my tone leaving no room for argument. "Of course. Leo, the other grave. We've got a tentative ID. Lily Forbes, 9 years old, reported missing from 2 counties over last fall. Her parents thought she was at a specialized behavioral camp." I closed my eyes. "How many more?" "We're looking. She's not talking. Just says she's helping troubled souls, and we're persecuting her faith." He paused. "How did you know to come here tonight?" "I didn't," I said, looking down at Chloe's sleeping face. "I just came home early. Anna said she was here. I just knew." "Anna," Ben said softly, "we'll need to talk to her too. Did she know what was happening here?" I met his gaze. "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." Chloe stirred against my chest. "Daddy?" she mumbled, half asleep. "Can we go home now?" I looked at my house, filled with neglect and lies. I looked at Ben, at the flashing lights, at the small body bags the coroner's team was now carefully bringing up from the backyard. "Not to that house, baby," I whispered into her hair. "We're going somewhere safe, a warm place, and I'm staying with you. I'm never leaving you again. I promise." As I drove away, the sun finally broke over the mountain ridge, turning the world gold and red. In my rearview mirror, the lights still flashed, tiny and urgent against the vast, uncaring landscape. I thought of Lily Forbes' parents, about to receive a phone call that would shatter their world all over again. I thought of the other parents, maybe receiving their children back, broken. And I thought of Anna, asleep in our bed, who had sent our daughter into this nightmare. Why? Chloe wasn't troubled. She was just a little girl who missed her dad. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I'd spent my career fighting enemies in distant lands. I never thought the real enemy could be waiting at home, hidden in the people I was supposed to trust. And I would make sure every single person responsible paid, starting with my wife. The hotel room was an island of sterile, artificial calm. Bright overhead lights, generic landscape art on the walls, the hum of central heating. After the raw, freezing darkness of Beatrice's property, it felt like another planet. I'd gotten a suite with 2 beds. Chloe, wrapped in a fresh blanket from the hospital, finally fell into an exhausted sleep around Noon. A doctor had come to the hotel, a kind woman with gentle hands and sad eyes. She'd examined Chloe, documenting the mild hypothermia, the bruising on her arms and legs, the psychological trauma. "She's going to need help," the doctor had said to me quietly at the door. "Professional help. What she went through, children don't just bounce back from that." I knew. I knew about scars that don't show on the skin. Now, with Chloe sleeping, the silence in the room was deafening. It wasn't the peaceful quiet of safety. It was the heavy, waiting silence after an explosion. My mind, trained for action, had no target, so it turned inward to the questions. Why had I never looked deeper? Beatrice Grayson. Grayson Center for Renewal. I opened my laptop, the glow illuminating my hands. The search felt like a betrayal of Anna, but that trust was already ashes. The website was slick, professional. Stock photos of smiling teens hiking in the mountains, testimonials from grateful parents about transformed lives, scripture quotes about discipline and redemption peppered throughout. It looked legitimate, hopeful, but when I dug past the first page, into forums and review sites buried deep in search results, a different story emerged. One post, from 2 years ago, we sent our son to the Grayson Center for 3 months. When he came home, he was a ghost. He wouldn't speak, just rocked and cried. He said if he told us what happened, they'd put him under the ground. We thought it was a metaphor. Now I pray to God it was another. I pulled my daughter out after 1 week. She'd lost 8 pounds. She had rope burns on her wrists. Beatrice Grayson told me I was interfering with her spiritual cleansing, that my lack of faith was damning my child. I called the sheriff. They said it was a private matter, a contractual dispute. My hands were fists on the keyboard. I kept digging. A local news article from 4 years ago. A brief mention of a county social services investigation into the Grayson Center following an anonymous complaint. The investigator, a man named Robert Hill, had found no evidence of abuse or neglect. The complaint was dismissed. Case closed. I searched for Robert Hill. He'd retired 2 years ago. To a lakeside property in Florida. A very nice, very expensive-looking lakeside property. The pieces were there. They'd always been there. I just hadn't wanted to see them. Have you ever done that? Turned a blind eye to something uncomfortable in your own family, telling yourself you're keeping the peace? The cost of that peace, it can be unbearable. My phone vibrated. The screen showed my old teammate, David Chen. We'd served together for 6 years. If there was anyone I trusted with my life, it was him. Brother, his voice was steady, a calm anchor. Ben Carter called me. He said you walked into something hellish. Yeah. The word was gravel in my throat. I looked at Chloe's sleeping form. I did. I'm 6 hours away. Do you need me? I need to know who I can trust. Ben is solid. But this, David, this feels bigger. A social worker retires to a mansion. Complaints go nowhere. This wasn't just one evil woman. She had a shield. What do you need? No hesitation. Can you dig? Quietly. Beatrice Grayson. Robert Hill. The finances of the Grayson Center. Follow the money. Consider it done. Leo. How's Chloe? The question was gentle. Alive, I said. The word thick with emotion. That's what matters right now. And Anna? I looked out the hotel window at the gray afternoon. I'm dealing with that today. After hanging up, I did something I'd been putting off. I opened a new document and typed a single word at the top. Resignation. My career was over. A chapter closed. Chloe needed one parent fully present, not haunted by 2 battlefields. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Anna. Where are you? The police were here. They asked about my mother. What's going on? I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the photos on my phone, the ones I'd taken in the pit. The stark, horrific evidence of Lily Forbes. I stared at them, forcing myself to memorize every detail, the angle of a bone, the color of the fabric, the gleam of the tag. This was the reality. This was what discipline looked like. Then I opened a new document and began to write. Everything I'd seen, everything Chloe had whispered to me, every detail, every smell, every chilling word from Beatrice. A sworn statement. For the trial I knew was coming. Chloe woke up. She blinked, looking around the unfamiliar room, a flash of panic in her eyes before she saw me and settled. "Hey, baby," I said, closing the laptop. "How are you feeling?" "Tired," she said, sitting up slowly. She looked small and young in the big hotel bed. Is Grandma in jail?" "Yes, good." The word was flat, hard. It came from a place in her that should have still been filled with cartoons and fairy tales. That hardness broke my heart all over again. She was quiet for a moment, picking at the blanket. Then she asked the question I'd been dreading. "Daddy, are we going back to Mommy?" How do you answer that? Your child's world has been split in two. One parent is safety. The other might be the reason she was in a hole in the ground. There's no right answer, only the truth. I moved to sit on the edge of her bed. "Chloe, I need to ask you something. And I need you to tell me the absolute truth. Okay? Even if you think it might make me sad." She nodded, her big eyes solemn. "Did Mommy know about the holes? About what Grandma was doing?" Chloe's eyes instantly filled with tears. She looked down at her hands. She said I was being bad, that I wasn't obeying, that I talked back too much. She said Grandma knew how to teach kids to be good. She took me there on Tuesday. She told Grandma I needed to learn respect. A cold, final certainty settled in my chest, freezing the last ember of doubt. "What did you do that was so bad, sweetheart?" "I didn't want to eat my broccoli," she whispered, a tear slipping down her cheek. "And I didn't clean my room when she asked. And I cried a lot, because I missed you." The floodgates opened then, great heaving sobs. "I didn't mean to be bad, Daddy. I just wanted you to come home." I pulled her into me, holding her tight, letting her tears soak my shirt. Over her head, my face was stone. Anna had sent our daughter to a woman who tortured children. Over broccoli. Over a messy room. Over a little girl's grief for her father. "You weren't bad," I said into her hair, my voice fierce. "Do you hear me? You were a normal, wonderful 7-year-old girl. What Mommy did was wrong. What Grandma did was evil. But you did nothing wrong. Can I stay with you?" She whispered, the question a fragile thing. "You are staying with me. Forever. I promise." There was a knock on the hotel room door. I checked the peephole. Ben Carter, looking older than he had just hours before. I let him in. "How is she?" he asked quietly, glancing at Chloe, who hid her face in my shoulder. "She'll survive." "What did they find?" Ben pulled out a small notepad, his movements heavy. 4 graves. So far, Lily Forbes, confirmed. The second, Jason Miller, 10 years old, reported as a runaway from the city 2 years ago. His parents believed he was at a wilderness therapy program. He took a breath. The third is a girl, maybe 8 or 9. No ID yet. The fourth, he paused, rubbing his forehead. The fourth is recent, a boy named Samuel Reed. He'd only been on the property for 10 days. How many kids total went through that place? We're piecing it together. From records she kept, maybe over 80 in the last 5 years. Most graduated. But we're cross-referencing every name with missing persons reports across 3 states. What about Robert Hill, the social worker? Ben's expression darkened. How do you know that name? He investigated her 4 years ago, found nothing. Then he retired to a Florida waterfront house on a state pension. The FBI might want to look at his bank accounts. They already are. Ben sighed. Leo, there's more. We found financial records. Beatrice was charging $25,000 for a 12-week program. Mostly cash. We're talking millions over the years. Where's the money? I asked, the soldier in me seeing the logistical chain. That's what the FBI is asking. She didn't spend it on the property. She had partners. Someone who made this look legitimate. Someone who kept the wolves at bay. He looked at me, his eyes grave. They want to talk to Anna. Soon. Your wife, she had to know something. She knew, I said, my voice flat. Chloe just told me. Anna took her there. Told Beatrice she needed to learn respect. Ben looked sick. I'm sorry, Leo. Don't be. Just make sure everyone involved goes down. I don't care who they are. All of them. After Ben left, I made a call I'd been avoiding. Anna's sister, Clara. She answered on the second ring, her voice tight with anxiety. Leo? My God, Anna's hysterical. She said her mother was arrested. That you took Chloe. What is happening? Clara, listen to me. Your mother was running a torture camp. She was abusing children. At least 4 are dead. Chloe was standing in a burial pit when I found her last night. Silence. Then a choked. No. That's... Mom is strict. But she helps kids. She'd never. I saw the graves, Clara. The FBI is digging up bodies right now. Lily Forbes. Jason Miller. A little girl no one can name yet. All dead because of what your mother did. I heard a sharp intake of breath, then a muffled sob. I can't believe it. Clara, I need to know. Did you ever see anything? Anything at all that felt wrong? A long pause. We had a fight. Years ago. About parenting. She said I was raising my boys too soft, that they needed grace and discipline. I told her to stay away from my family. We haven't spoken since. Her voice broke. But Anna kept in touch. She said I was overreacting. Anna sent Chloe there 4 days ago. No, Leo, she wouldn't. She loves Chloe. She sent her because Chloe didn't eat her vegetables and talked back. Another stunned silence. When Clara spoke again, her voice was different, cleared of doubt, hard. Where is Chloe now? With me. She's safe. Keep her there. Keep her away from Anna. I love my sister, Leo, but if she knew what was happening and sent her child into it, she took a shaky breath. What can I do? Tell the truth. When the police or FBI ask you, tell them everything. Don't protect anyone. I will. I'm so sorry, Leo. If I had known. Make it count now, I said softly, and hung up. The door to the past was closing, locking shut with a series of final, terrible clicks. There was no going back. The next morning I took Chloe to a safe house Ben had arranged, a small apartment above a quiet bookstore in the next town, owned by a retired cop. A kind female officer named Julia would stay with her. I don't want you to go, Chloe said, clutching Mr. Trunks to her chest. I'll be back tonight, I promise. Julia is nice. This place is safe. The door has 3 locks. I knelt down. Baby, I need to make sure the people who hurt you can never, ever hurt anyone else. That's what I'm doing today. Can you be brave for me? She looked at me, my little soldier. Are you going to bring Mommy? My jaw tightened. Do you want to see Mommy? She thought about it, her small face a mask of confusion and pain. Then she shook her head. Not yet. Okay. You don't have to see anyone you don't want to. I kissed her forehead, my heart a lead weight in my chest. But as I drove toward my old home, that weight transformed. It didn't lighten, it solidified into something cold, focused, and lethal. A weapon of intent. Beatrice was in a cell, but she was just the tool. I needed the hands that wielded her. I pulled into my driveway at 9 a.m. Anna's car was there. I sat for a moment, gathering the cold rage, shaping it into control. Then I went inside. She was in the kitchen, pacing. She looked wrecked, pale, eyes red raw. When she saw me, she rushed forward. Leo. Finally. The police won't tell me anything. They took my mom. They're saying these horrible things. It's ridiculous. You have to tell them it's a mistake. Where's Chloe? She's safe. Safe from what? Leo, what is going on? Why are you looking at me like that? I studied her face, this woman I'd shared a life with. I'm trying to decide, I said slowly, if my wife is profoundly stupid or genuinely evil. She flinched as if struck. What? You sent our daughter to a woman who tortures children, who has murdered at least 4 that we know of. You took her there on Tuesday and told your mother she needed to learn respect. Anna's face contorted. It's not like that. My mother's program is strict, but it works. It helps kids who are out of control. Chloe was not out of control. My voice cracked through the kitchen like a gunshot. She's 7. She didn't eat her vegetables. That's not out of control, Anna. That's childhood. She was disrespectful. She wouldn't listen. She was. So you sent her to be buried alive in a freezing pit? Anna's mouth hung open. No. Mom wouldn't. I pulled her out of that hole myself. Anna, at 2 a.m, she was standing in mud and ice water, shaking so hard she could barely breathe. She begged me not to look in the other hole. I took a step closer. You know what was in the other hole? The bones of a 9-year-old girl named Lily Forbes. Anna staggered back, hitting the counter. Her face went from pale to a sickly green. No, that's not possible. Mom said, kids who run away start rumors. Did you ever actually go there, Anna? Did you ever look? Or did you just cash the checks? The color drained completely from her face. What? The FBI found the financials, Anna. Beatrice's little program. The referrals. The commissions. She was shaking her head, but the fight was gone from her eyes, replaced by a dawning, horrified comprehension. I don't know what you're talking about. How many, Anna? How many other children did you send to your mother's hell for a payday? Silence. Thick and guilty. Clara cut your mother off years ago, said she was dangerous. You kept Chloe away from her most of the time. Why? She could be. Intense, Anna whispered, her eyes on the floor. You knew. You knew she could break our daughter, and you sent her there anyway. I thought I could control it. She burst out, tears finally spilling over. I told her to just scare her a little, just enough to get her to behave. You can't be a little evil, Anna. I was shouting now, the controls shattering. You can't torture someone a little. Chloe is traumatized. She has nightmares. She doesn't trust anyone. She asked me if she ever has to see you again. Anna collapsed into a chair, sobbing. I didn't want this to happen. I was just so tired. You were never here, and she was so difficult. And I thought, you didn't think. I snarled. That's the problem. Pack your things. You're leaving. Her head snapped up. This is my house too, I don't care. You're leaving today. And if you fight me on this, I will make sure everyone, your job, your friends, everyone knows that you sold children to a torturer. Starting with our own. I have rights. Chloe had rights. Lily Forbes had the right not to be buried in a backyard. I leaned over the table, my voice dropping to a deadly whisper. Here's what's going to happen. You'll talk to a lawyer. You'll agree to give me full custody. You'll stay away from Chloe unless she, one day, asks to see you. And you will cooperate fully with the FBI's investigation into your mother and her network. The FBI? You think this ends with Beatrice? She had help, Anna. People with money and connections who let this happen for years. And you're going to tell them everything you know. Her contacts, her finances, everything. I don't know anything about that. Then you'd better start remembering. Because if you don't cooperate, they'll charge you as an accomplice. Accessory to murder. The words hung in the air. Anna's face crumpled completely. I didn't know she was killing kids, Leo. I swear on my life. I looked at her, at the ruins of the life we'd built in this kitchen. But you knew she was hurting them, and you didn't care enough to stop. I turned and walked out. I left her there, sobbing at the table in the house where we'd brought Chloe home from the hospital, where we'd had birthday parties and built blanket forts. It was all just a memory now, a ghost. I met David Chen at a diner on the edge of town. He already had a laptop open, looking intense. You look like hell, he said. Feel worse. What did you find? He slid a folder across the Formica table. Beatrice's brother. William Grayson. I opened it. A photo of a man in his 60s, stern-faced, in a judicial robe. He's a county judge for 15 years. Family court. Juvenile cases. David tapped the folder. Guess what happens when a complaint is filed against the Grayson Center? It lands on his desk and gets dismissed. 6 times in the last 5 years. Unfounded allegations. Family disputes. David's expression was grim. 3 of the kids named in those dismissed complaints are now among the missing. The puzzle piece snapped into place with a sickening finality. He provided the legal cover. It gets deeper, David said, lowering his voice. Robert Hill, the social worker? He's William Grayson's former brother-in-law, divorced his sister a decade ago. But I traced payments. A shell company called New Dawn Consulting has been paying Hill a consultant's fee every month for years. New Dawn is owned by a holding company. Guess who the principals of the holding company are? I didn't need to guess. William and Beatrice Grayson. 50-50 split. They were laundering the program fees through this network, paying off Hill and probably others. Millions of dollars, Leo. I leaned back, the scope of it dizzying. So the judge blocks legal challenges. The social worker blocks state investigations. Beatrice runs the operation. It's a perfect, corrupt little ecosystem. That's the theory. The FBI is building the case now. But Leo, David's eyes held a warning. There are gaps. Large cash withdrawals. Payments to names I can't trace yet. This didn't just protect the program. It protected the clients. The wealthy, powerful parents who wanted their problem children to disappear. My phone rang. Ben Carter. Leo, we have something. Beatrice is talking. She's trying to cut a deal. Says she was coerced. That powerful people made her keep the program going. She's lying to save her skin, probably. But her lawyer says she has names, details. She wants immunity. And Leo, she mentioned Anna. She said, your wife knew exactly what she was sending me, and she was well paid for it. The diner seemed to tilt. How well paid? $5,000. Per referral? I ended the call. I looked at David. He'd heard enough. She wasn't just a negligent mother, I said, my voice hollow. She was a recruiter, a trafficker. David nodded slowly. What now? Now, I said, standing up, the cold focus returning, sharper than ever. I have one more conversation with my wife. And this time, she's going to tell me the whole, ugly truth. I found Anna at her sister Clara's house. Clara let me in, her face a mask of grief and anger. She just nodded toward the kitchen and walked away, giving us space filled with tension. Anna was sitting at the table, a cold cup of coffee in front of her. She looked up, and the fear in her eyes was immediate and total. I was just leaving, she said, standing too quickly. Sit down, Anna. She sat. I didn't. I leaned against the counter, a barrier of granite between us. The FBI spoke to your mother, I said, my voice devoid of any warmth. She's rolling over, trying to trade information for a lighter sentence. She says you helped recruit families, that you got $5,000 for every child you sent her way. Anna's silence was louder than any confession. She stared at the table, her breathing shallow. How many? The question was a blade. A whisper. I don't know, maybe 15. Over a few years, 15 kids. $75,000. My wife had a price, and it was cheaper than I could have ever imagined. 15 children, I repeated, letting the number hang in the air. You sold 15 kids into a torture camp. It wasn't supposed to be torture. She cried, her head snapping up. It was a program, a tough love program. The parents were desperate. They didn't know what else to do, so you exploited desperate parents and handed their children to a monster for cash. Clara's voice came from the doorway, thick with disgust. My God, Anna, what is wrong with you? You don't understand. Anna wailed, turning to her sister. We needed the money. Leo was always gone. The army salary wasn't enough, and I had debts from before, and we had enough. I roared, finally losing the icy control. The sound made both women flinch. We had a home, food, everything we needed. You did this for what? A newer car? A vacation? Things? She was sobbing now, messy and broken. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I didn't think anyone would get hurt. She said it was safe. 4 children are dead, Anna. How is that safe? I didn't know about the graves. I swear, Leo, I didn't know. When she said kids ran away, I believed her. I thought they just left. Willful ignorance. It's the most dangerous kind. You see the red flags. You hear the alarms. But you shut your eyes and cover your ears because the truth is too inconvenient. Because it would cost you something. How many of us have done that? On a smaller scale. Chosen the comfortable lie over the painful truth? I looked at her, at this stranger I'd married. Your sister cut your mother off because she saw the truth. You knew she was dangerous. You limited Chloe's time with her, but you kept sending other people's children. You thought you could control the evil. Use it. Profit from it. I pulled out my phone. The FBI will be here for you soon. The parents you recruited will want answers, and I will make sure every single person knows what you did. Please, she gasped, reaching a hand toward me. Please, Leo. I made a mistake. I was stupid and greedy, and I'm sorry. But I'm still her mother. I love her. You sent her to a torture camp, I said, stepping back from her outstretched hand as if it were poison. You don't get to say you love her. Stay away from us. Don't call. Don't text. Don't try to see her. If I see you near her, I'll have you arrested. You can't keep me from my daughter. Watch me. My voice was flat, final. You're about to be charged with conspiracy, child endangerment, and trafficking. You'll be lucky if you ever see sunlight again without bars in the way. I turned to Clara. Thank you for being honest. Clara's eyes were full of tears. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I'm sorry I didn't stop it. This isn't your fault, I said, and I meant it. The blame lay in one place only. I walked out, leaving the sound of Anna's shattered weeping behind me. As I drove, my phone rang. An unknown number with a DC area code. Leo Vane? A crisp, professional voice. Yes. Special Agent Ian Moss, FBI. We need you to come in for a formal interview. Today, if possible. I can be there in 30 minutes. Good. And Mr. Vane, bring your attorney. We'll be discussing serious federal charges. My hand tightened on the wheel. Against who? Against everyone. We're building a case under RICO. Organized crime, conspiracy, child trafficking, murder. This is bigger than Beatrice Grayson. We're targeting the entire network. A grim satisfaction cut through the fatigue. Good. I should warn you, Agent Moss continued, your wife is a primary target. We believe she was integral to the recruitment pipeline. If she cooperates fully, we can discuss reduced charges. But she is facing significant prison time. I don't care what happens to her. Just get them all. We intend to. But Mr. Vane, watch your back. The people involved have resources and connections. They will not go quietly. After hanging up, I called the only lawyer I fully trusted, Maya Rodriguez, a JAG officer I'd served with who now worked in private practice. I gave her the bare bones. She listened in stunned silence. My God, Leo, I'll be there, and I'll get you the best family law attorney in the state. We'll file for emergency custody today. The FBI offices were a study in sterile efficiency. Fluorescent lights, beige walls. Across from me sat Agent Moss, mid-40s, sharp-eyed, and a woman he introduced as Agent Talia Vance. Lily Forbes was my cousin, Agent Vance said without preamble, her gaze direct and burning with a quiet fury. So you should know, this is personal for me. Everyone responsible will pay. I gave my statement again, for the official record. Every detail. Finding Chloe. The second grave. Anna's admissions. When I finished, Moss leaned back. Your wife claims she was unaware of the fatalities. Do you believe her? I believe she chose not to know, I said. But she knew kids were being hurt. She saw the money. That was enough for her. Agent Vance nodded. We've identified 12 families, she referred. Of those 12 children, 2 are confirmed dead. 3 are still missing. The others, the stories are consistent. Brutality, deprivation, psychological torture, and the other perpetrators, the judge, the social worker. Moss's jaw tightened. William Grayson is a sitting judge with political ties. We need an airtight case. We're building it. But it takes time. How much time? I asked, the soldier in me frustrated by the pace of bureaucracy. Kids died while you built a case. I know, Moss said, his own frustration showing. But if we move too soon and he walks on a technicality, he walks forever. We get one shot. What can I do? Nothing, Vance said firmly. Stay out of it. Focus on your daughter. Let us do our jobs. I didn't respond. I had no intention of staying out of it. With Maya Rodriguez's help, we filed for emergency custody and divorce. The legal wheels began to turn, slow but inexorable. But the legal system operates on its own clock. My clock, the one ticking with Chloe's nightmares and the memory of Lily Forbes's bones, ran faster. That night, with Chloe safely at the bookstore apartment with Officer Julia, I met David again. I need you to do something for me, I said. It's not legal. He didn't even blink. Figured. What do you need? William Grayson. I need everything. Emails, financials, phone records. The FBI is getting warrants. I don't want to wait. David was silent for a long moment. You know what you're asking, I know. We won't get caught. We're just applying old skills to a new battlefield. He gave a slow nod. When? Tonight. In a motel room with specialized equipment David acquired, we went to work. William Grayson's digital security was complacent. He felt protected by his robe and his connections. Within hours we had access. What we found wasn't just evidence of corruption. It was a ledger of horror. Spreadsheets listing children by code names, columns for parental donation, duration, behavioral outcome. Outcome categories included rehabilitated, transferred, and a chilling, simple terminated emails between William and Beatrice. The Lowry situation is becoming a liability. Resolve it. Beatrice's reply, permanent solution arranged. No loose ends. Caitlin Lily Forbes had been murdered for asking too many questions. Send me everything, I told David. Encrypted. Multiple backups. What's the plan? Insurance, I said, my eyes on the screen. If the case falls apart, if these people slip through the net, this goes public. To every news desk, every social media platform, every parent in this state. Over the next week, while the official investigation churned, I built my own case, not for a court of law, but for the court of public opinion. I reached out to journalists with careful background information. I connected with broken parents from the forums. I compiled a dossier of innocents destroyed. One father, Mark, reached out to me. His son had been sent to the Grayson Center 2 years prior. He came back a shadow, Mark said over coffee, his hands shaking. He screams about the cold dark in his sleep. I didn't understand until I saw the news. Your wife, she said it was the only place that could help him. Did you pay the center directly? No, I paid a company. Family Path Solution. They handled everything. My pulse jumped. That was another shell company David had flagged. Do you have the paperwork? He did. And that paperwork, when traced by a relentless FBI with new probable cause, led to a sleek, expensive law firm in the city. The lawyer who ran it, a man named Charles Whitlock, specialized in discreet asset protection for the wealthy. I didn't wait for the FBI. I walked into Whitlock's office. He was everything you'd expect. Polished, expensive suit, a tan from leisure, an air of untouchable arrogance. I'm afraid you don't have an appointment, he said, not looking up from his desk. Leo Vane, my daughter was tortured by one of your clients. You built the financial maze that let them hide the profits. He looked up then, his expression carefully neutral. I provide legal services. What my clients do is not my concern. You created shell companies to launder money from the murder of children. I dropped a folder on his desk. Family Path Solutions. New Dawn Consulting. All roads lead back to you. Attorney-client privilege protects my communications. Now, please leave. It doesn't protect you from being an accomplice. How much did they pay you? 10%? 20? What's your fee for looking the other way while kids are buried? He stood up, leaning on his desk. Get out, or I'll call security. I smiled. It wasn't a pleasant sight. You know, I found something interesting about you, Mr. Whitlock. Your son. 16. Some trouble with the law, from what I hear. Struggling. A troubled youth. His face went pale. I'm not threatening him, I'm just saying, you helped create a system that preys on kids just like him. How would you feel if someone like you sent him to a place like the Grayson Center? You son of a... Think about it, I said, turning to leave. The FBI will be here tomorrow with warrants. You can cooperate, or you can watch your perfect life burn down. Your choice. The next day, Charles Whitlock called the FBI. He wanted to deal, and he gave them everything: the money flow, the names of other protected clients, the entire financial architecture of the nightmare. The dominoes began to fall fast. A sheriff's deputy was arrested for deliberately burying complaints. A state child welfare supervisor was taken in for accepting bribes to close investigations. And then, the big names: a state senator, a telecom CEO, a real estate magnate. All had sent children to Grayson, not for discipline, but for silencing. Their children had discovered affairs, financial fraud, abuse. Beatrice Grayson's program was a black market solution for the rich and powerful, a place to break inconvenient young witnesses. The media erupted. The story was everywhere: the mountain horror, the graveyard retreat. Beatrice, William, Anna, their faces were on every screen. My divorce and custody hearing was a short, brutal affair. The judge reviewed the evidence of Anna's complicity, read Chloe's psychological evaluation, and listened to my statement. Mrs. Vane has demonstrated a catastrophic failure of parental judgment and moral responsibility, the judge said, her voice echoing in the quiet courtroom. Full custody is granted to Mr. Vane. No visitation is permitted until such time as the minor's therapists and the court deem it safe. If ever, it was over. Officially. But two of the wealthy parents, a pharmaceutical heir named Roland Thorne and none other than Charles Whitlock's former client, a venture capitalist named Arthur Finch, had skipped bail. They'd vanished with their wealth, and Interpol had no leads. They're desperate, Leo. Agent Moss told me over a secure line. And they know you and Chloe are the keys that unlocked this. You need to disappear until we find them. So David and I took Chloe to a remote, family-owned ranch in Wyoming. Vast skies, empty plains, and safety. But I couldn't just hide. Using David's network, we tracked the fugitives not to a foreign beach, but to a survivalist compound in the remote Idaho wilderness. They weren't running to something. They were hiding from everything. I made a choice. I told David to stay with Chloe. If I'm not back in 48 hours, call Moss and get her somewhere even deeper. Then I went hunting. It wasn't about vengeance. Not entirely. It was about closure. For Chloe. For Lily. For all of them. These men believed their money and influence placed them above consequence. I needed to show them they were wrong. I found the compound. I observed. And when the time was right, I went in. Not to kill, to capture, to deliver. They were there, these masters of the universe, now living in fear, surrounded by canned goods and paranoia. They didn't even put up a fight. The fight had been drained out of them the moment their protective wall of money and lies crumbled. You're under arrest, I said, standing in the doorway of their cabin as dawn broke. You can come quietly, or I can drag you out. But you're going back. You're going to face every family you destroyed. They came quietly. The trials that followed were a national spectacle. Beatrice Grayson, 4 consecutive life sentences. William Grayson, life without parole. Anna, after full cooperation, 7 to 10 years. The senator, the CEO, the others, decades in prison, fortunes seized, names ruined. Charles Whitlock, the lawyer, got 20 years for racketeering and conspiracy. Roland Thorne and Arthur Finch, dragged back from Idaho, got life. Justice in the eyes of the law was served. 5 years later. The backyard of our new home is small but sunny. Chloe is 12, tall and strong, kicking a soccer ball with a friend. The nightmares are rare now. Therapy helped. Time helped. Love help. Ben Carter, now retired, comes over for barbecues. We don't talk about the case much, but sometimes, when the sun sets, he'll say, "You know, I think about those kids. What they'd be." "Me too," I always say. Chloe runs over, breathless and smiling. "Dad, did you see that goal?" "I saw it. Amazing." I ruffle her hair. She doesn't flinch at the touch anymore. Later, after her friend has gone home and Ben has left, we sit on the porch swing. She leans against me, like she did when she was small. "Dad?" "Yeah, bug?" "Thank you. For saving me." My throat gets tight. I pull her close. "You don't ever have to thank me for that. But I want to. Not all dads would have done what you did. Not all dads would have fought so hard. I think about the lines I crossed, the laws I bent, the darkness I walked into. I did what any parent should do. I whisper into her hair. "You did more," she says, with the simple, profound wisdom of a child who has seen the worst and chosen to see the good. "You made it stop. For everyone." That night, after she's asleep, my phone buzzes. A message from David Chen. Another case. Different state. Similar pattern. Wealthy parents. A wellness retreat for troubled teens. Missing kids. Thought you should know. I look at the message for a long time. I look at the door to my daughter's room, where she sleeps, safe and sound. Then I type back, "Send me the details." Because the battle against evil isn't one you win forever. It's one you fight every time it rises. You fight for your children. You fight for other people's children. You fight. And that's my story. It's not a pleasant one, but it's true. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. If this story resonated with you, do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe to Jackson Stories. It lets me know you're out there and that these stories matter. Let's build a community that stands up for what's right. In the comments, I'd love to know, what's one thing you fought for against all odds? Tell me your city and the time you're watching. I read every single one, and if you want to support the channel a little extra, you can use the thanks button. I bring you new, powerful life stories every single day. Take care of each other. Be the light in the darkness. I'll see you in the next story.